would never do that. I would never do that. And I became that in a matter of minutes when they took my pain pills away.
And I said, I'm not where I want to be, but thank God I'm not what I used to be.
This is Faith in Your Recovery. I am Randy Davis. Welcome to the battle. Hey, we're glad you came aboard today. We're looking forward to this episode of Faith in Your Recovery. I don't know what your memory is like. I don't know what kind of an archive you have between your shoulders. But if you look back in our archives, we're going to interview a gentleman today that we last interviewed August 2nd of 2022. So we're talking about 4 years ago, and life's had a lot of changes for him. I know he's in a good place compared to when we talked to him before. He's been able to advance on professionally, personally, we hope spiritually as well. But we're glad you've joined us, and we're going to hear in just a few moments from Hartford City's own Larry Musselman. Welcome aboard, Larry.
Glad to be here, Andy.
Hey, we're excited to have you. This was kind of a last-minute ordeal, and Larry was able and willing to step up. We greatly appreciate that because we don't want to leave you guys without another episode. This is number 230, so thank you for each and every one that you have been a part of. Larry, let's give a kind of a quick review of your background. What led you to drugs? What that time looked like?
Well, Randy, I started pretty early. I had some things I was dealing with when I was a kid. Was molested. Was not in a good headspace, and just basically turned to drugs at an early age. Not as early as some that I know, but definitely earlier than a lot, probably. So it was in my early teens.
You're talking about, Larry?
Say again?
What was that age range you're talking about?
About 12 or 13.
Okay.
Junior high year. Yeah, started smoking, smoking pot, cigarettes, drinking whenever I could get my hands on it, and that just escalated over the years into not just drugs, but gambling and everything else. So I spent over 20 years in active addiction, and at the height of it, my drug of choice was "What do you got?" It didn't really matter that much to me. So
I'm not laughing about the moment. I'm laughing about the description. Okay.
absolutely. I mean, I can look back on it now and be like, what in the heck was I thinking? But as life progressed in my early 20s, I joined the Marine Corps and ended up after a couple of years getting a bad conduct discharge from the Marines for substance use. And this was before, substance use disorder was really a mainstream thing. So it was highly common for individuals in the military to have multiple DUIs or drinking arrests or what have you. But by golly, you smoke a little pot, and they'll kick you right out. But after that, just relationship after relationship failed, and just continued to use and it just got worse and worse, from marijuana to cocaine to methamphetamines to pills, basically whatever I could break down and put into a needle.
You started going down that slippery slope and just grabbed at whatever drug you could grab at on the way down, it sounds like.
Absolutely.
And what kind of incarceration was there during all of this, Larry?
Well, I had, multiple misdemeanor arrests for OWIs and things like that. But I'll tell you, Randy, I wanted to quit. I just didn't know how. Um, and I even considered suicide for for a moment or two, and um, I hit my knees one night and I said, God, and I grew up in church. So it wasn't like he was a complete stranger, but I knew who Jesus was, but I didn't know him. I didn't know him, right? I knew who he was, but I didn't know him.
I understand.
And I hit my knees and I said, I can't do this anymore, and I need your help. 2 days later, I kid you not, I was arrested uh, on warrants that I had from selling in Huntington County. Um, Actually, let me take that. This was an arrest from Whitley County. It was a prescription forgery charge. So that was a level C felony. And while I was in jail in Whitley County, I got the warrant from Huntington County uh, for the dealing charges. So I ended up, um, fortunately, I had a fairly decent public defender, and he was able to get the two level A felonies in Huntington County dropped down to lesser included B felonies. Otherwise, I may have just gotten out of prison here recently. But I ended up with a 12 due 6 with 2 years on paper. And I got out in just over 5 years from the Department of Corrections.
I want to go back to what I call that lights on moment where you dropped to your knees and you knew God was the only help for this. The only way toward any kind of recovery, future success, even life, because you talked about those suicidal ideations. I don't know how heavy those became, how often, really doesn't matter, but they were there. What was that moment like for you? And what were your first steps when you got off your knees, spiritually speaking?
Well, to be honest, Randy, it was kind of just a cry out for help from a place of desperation. Um, I didn't know where else to turn, and I really expect him to answer? Maybe I did, maybe I didn't. I don't know. Just where my head was and my heart was at that time. Um, it was like I don't know what else to do. Um, and of course, he answered that. Not now, obviously not in the way that I wanted it answered. But
He doesn't
through
know.
no, no,
Uh, he knows
no,
a
he
better
doesn't.
way in the long run.
Absolutely. So through that, I started pouring, just reading everything I could. And I'd read the Bible before. As I said, I grew up in church, but um, I was starting to see it from a different perspective. Um, and during my incarceration in Huntington County, I gave my life to the Lord and was baptized in uh, basically a trough that they brought in and put in the intake garage and filled with water.
Often
Um,
the case.
Say again?
I said, often the case.
Yes, absolutely. Um, so from there, once I got to the facility that I was going to, which was Miami Correctional, um, I was introduced to Celebrate Recovery. Um, be honest, I was really just looking. I was kind of looking for a time cut to get home sooner. Um, but they told me I had too much time to get into a substance abuse class, which really didn't make sense to me. Um, Seems like coming off the streets, that's really kind of when you need to learn about it, not, when you've had forced sobriety for a while. But uh, my counselor told me that, I couldn't get into it. But there was a program, if I was really serious about it. Um, that on Tuesday evenings I could go to this thing called Celebrate Recovery, and I decided to check it out. I mean, you know what? what more, could you ask for? I get to get out of the cell block for a little bit, um, learn a little something about recovery, and of course, Celebrate Recovery's faith-based. Um, and I was introduced to that, as well as a book called A Purpose-Driven Life.
Ah,
Um, and boy, I'll tell you, I still have my copy somewhere, and it's got highlighted lines all over it. Um, and what I realized is, looking back and thinking about, how I was thinking about ending my life and things like that, and I realized that I didn't want to die. I just didn't know how to live. Um, and that's where I learned to live was in the Indiana Department of Corrections. I started uh, letting Jesus lead my life and not me. I mean, I've had a track record of really messing things up, so
I liked that quote that you started to live in a correctional facility. That's not a statement you often hear, but I can understand why you're saying that and how that was your experience, because you were able to, whether it was forced, whether it was by heart, whether it by the power of Christ at that time, move away from the drug. It wasn't dictating every choice you made, and you had to find something to help you make those choices. I know many are made for you in the facility, but they hit in the heart. They don't give up easily. And I'm thankful for that, and that you did find a way to cope, a way to grow, and a way to have something when you got out of there. So those are big lessons.
absolutely, absolutely. And he continued to. I really feel like Holy Spirit was continuing to teach me lessons here and there. Um, I recall one time I was sitting at the poker table when uh, during rec, and I felt this, hey, that's against the rules. You shouldn't be doing that. I'm like, oh man, I really like doing that. uh, but with my track record of gambling, I really shouldn't have been doing it. Um, so I had to stop doing that. Eventually, I ended up out at minimum housing um after, oh, I believe I was in there for a little over a year and a half in the maximum security. Made it out to minimum housing, and I was there for over 3 years, Randy, which is quite a long time for minimum housing. Usually, they don't have people there that long. That's usually a shorter term thing. But um, by continuing to allow God to lead my steps, and instead of me trying to figure it out all on my own, um, I went from making a 12 cent an hour job that we worked 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, to I ended up making $8.51 an hour while I was in prison. I had to pay room and board and victims fund and all of that out of it, but I was the highest paid individual at minimum housing during my time there. Um,
What was that job? I'm interested.
So I worked at the outside warehouse. I was the boss's clerk. Um, so that's where I learned computer skills. I learned how to use Excel and Word and things like that. I was in charge of filling out the bills of lading for shipping, in charge of inventory, payroll. I mean, you name it. I was in charge of it, and my boss signed off on it. So there was a lot of responsibility there, but it was still I truly enjoyed it. It was a great growth experience, and I had some say so as to who was brought in to the warehouse. Um, so we got to have that be a more godly environment, individuals that weren't going to be doing stupid things and endangering other people's jobs and stuff like that. So it was nice to have that kind of trust from an individual in an authoritative position while I was incarcerated, uh, which was really kind of cool.
That had to be a confidence builder, uh, as well as your spiritual being and everything else. That, hey, I'm finally starting to get this together. I've made some good choices of late. Listen, Larry, we've got a question from one of our listeners. Let's go ahead and take that question. Help
Okay.
us out, Eric, would you please? Who was what was the hardest part of letting go and letting God? That's the question.
Well, the hardest part I think was getting out of my own way. Um, and that's really, I don't know how to put it any other way. I mean, I can't describe it as, well, I just made a decision. No, I was a screw up, a class A screw up. I'll be honest, if I would have been arrested for all of the things that I should have been arrested for, I'd probably still be in prison. Uh, I knew my way wasn't working. Hadn't worked my entire life, um, and had to be open to something new. So, I teach a lot now, and one of the things that I teach individuals is you can't receive anything with an open or a closed fist, right? You can't receive anything. The same goes for your mind. If your mind is closed and it's not open to new experiences or new ideas or different ideas or perspectives, you're not going to be able to receive anything either. Um, so a lot of it had to do with the serenity prayer, really, and celebrate recovery. And I kind of adopted a stance of radical acceptance. If there wasn't something I could change, I wasn't gonna worry about it. Wasn't nothing I can do about it. And I still, if anybody that knows me will tell you that that's one of my favorite phrases. Is it is what it is, right? I can't change it. I'm not gonna worry about it. So that was really the transition in allowing God to lead me instead of letting myself lead me. Um, I knew I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't do it myself, so I needed help.
I want to hear about radical acceptance. Talk to that label for a moment, would you please?
Okay, yeah, sure. So, I mean, we all know the first couple of lines of the Serenity Prayer, right? God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, the wisdom to know the difference, right? But what a lot of people don't know, Randy, I'm gonna grab a book off my shelf here.
All right.
This is the actual Celebrate Recovery book that I had while I was in prison. Um, and if you want to, I'm just going to read the rest of the Serenity Prayer here real quick. So, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Living one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time, accepting hardship as a pathway to peace, taking as Jesus did the sinful world as it is and not as I would have it, trusting that He will make all things right if I surrender to His will, so that I may be reasonably happy in this life and supremely happy with Him forever in the next. So that line, accepting hardship as a pathway to peace, right? It it really opened my eyes to, well, there's more to just accepting things you can't change, and the wisdom to know what you can and what you can't. We're going to go through some crap. I mean, you take a look at Paul, for example. I mean, uh, boy, that fella had a hard time. Uh, but he wrote a huge chunk of the the New Testament, the epistles, and encouragement to churches, and all of these things. Some from prison. Um, he had been shipwrecked multiple times. He'd been beaten. He'd been stoned. All of these things. That's some hardship, right? Um, when we take that junk that the world throws at us, that hardship, and we accept it uh, as a pathway to something peaceful, right? Uh, to that serenity. God grant me the serenity, right? That's the peace that surpasses all understanding, is what that is, Randy. Um, it doesn't even make sense why you're so peaceful when the world's handing you the short end of the stick. Uh, that's radical acceptance. Doesn't matter what life throws at you or what the world throws at you. I know that at the end of the day, I know where I'm going. I know whose I am.
I,
Uh,
I love that. That will preach in Peoria. Okay. Those words are on target. That's the way God works. He's above and beyond anything the world can throw at us. And as we reach Him through Christ and the Holy Spirit, we become a part of that. That's what makes us more than conquerors. I've often said one of my favorite scriptures was Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through
mhm.
Christ that strengthens me. I'm not sure it's my favorite anymore. Once the Spirit spoke to me and said, that's even the things I don't want to do. Uh,
Mhm.
it's almost a gift when it's something I want to do, but when it goes against me, when I stand in the way, and you spoke earlier about the importance for you of getting out of the way, I realize I can even make that phone call I don't want to make. I can have that confrontation I don't want to have. I can face that illness I don't want to be a part of my life, that relationship, so many things. And you're putting such a positive, accurate spin on all of this that we all need to get into that radical acceptance, I believe you called it. And that prayer, it's probably, I can't say I haven't memorized, but I have a great familiarity, and I probably knew it long before I knew the Lord's Prayer, because it touched my life in a way that I had not allowed Christianity to yet touch my life. And that prayer carries such truths for all of us. And it's so applicable to everybody's life. And the
Mhm.
privileges and opportunities that provides us. So, Larry, you've shared with us struggles from early on, how you came into that relationship with Christ. Tell us where you are today. What does life look like? What are some of the differences? What are challenges you're still dealing with?
Well, I mean, challenges I think really are uh, growth in areas I never really thought I'd be in, Randy. So today, the last we spoke, we just launched the IRAX program in
Yeah,
the state of Indiana, and I was working at the Delaware County site.
I knew you'd been there.
And so in November of last year, I left uh, past recovery services for a job at Mental Health America of Indiana. So on the higher level of the IRAX program, I was the engagement coordinator, or engagement manager, sorry, which is kind of a job that I had my sights on from the very beginning of the program.
A goal.
So it was had a lot to do with writing trainings and providing those trainings to the individuals that worked at the IRAC sites across the state.
Tell the folks what IRACS stands for, please. I'm sure some of our listeners don't know.
Okay, so it's Integrated Reentry and Correctional Support. It's a program that was piloted in 2022 through Mental Health America of Indiana and contracted out to recovery community organizations across the state. So we started out with 5 pilot sites, pilot counties in the state. We expanded that up to, I think we were close to 12 at one point. And there's 3 here locally. There's Blackford County, Jay County, and Delaware County, of course, where I worked. Since my friend Shane Earhart, and who's also my boss, since we took the positions that we did, we have shifted from a direct oversight to an accreditation model, which means we accredit and approve recovery community organizations to run IRACS programs in county jails that they can put peers into to work with incarcerated individuals. As a matter of fact, Shane today went for the ceremonial bill signing of House Bill 1296, which basically wrote the IRACS program into law, which is just phenomenal to me from where we started to today. Today, my title has been changed. I'm the operations manager. So I'm actually working on currently. I just finished a training that will be launched next week or week after. Yeah, it's crazy. We're writing standard operating procedure manuals. We're developing recovery programs that will be utilized inside incarceration settings. All of those things that I couldn't get while I was incarcerated, Randy. Which it just amazes me the more I think about it, where God's brought me, and has continued to use my willingness to further the recovery field.
He'll do that. All we have to do is open the door, and if he wants us, he will open the door, and we can't close it. But if we have that willingness of spirit to be obedient, there's no end to what can be done. Now I'm hearing the term radical possibilities of where your life is and the things you've got going on and the outreach that you have worked out with so many others and the work that's getting done. You will probably have a better hold on this than I will, but just not much more than 5, certainly not 10 years ago, we're talking about things that did not exist. We're talking about communities who had little other than AA and occasional Celebrate Recovery. There were no opportunities for that struggler, that individual who was dealing with their addiction and wanting help. And the stigma at that time, I believe it's improved. There's still a stigma. There's still a bias there. I'm not going to deny that. We've come a long way, but we've got a long ways to go. And we're
Yes.
going to get there piece at a time, organization at a time, IRACs at a time, your position at a time. We're making it happen. We just need to keep it going. I've always said momentum's much easier to maintain than it is remake.
That's absolutely true. Yes.
And I don't care what the program, what the sport, what the effort's about. I believe that fits so many things. So what you guys are doing, you were talking about the incredibilities of it, and indeed it is. getting these kind of things passed and getting them to where they can be recognized as not just beneficial, but a way to change lives and create so much. So thank you to you for what you do, Shane. I know Shane well, other individuals who are involved. You're making a difference that you'll never know, but you'll get to see it in the Broadway. And for me, that's what it's about. So,
Absolutely. I mean,
yeah.
it's not that I really care about leaving a legacy, but this is something that is gonna outlive me, outlive us. It's something that's gonna continue to help people long after we're gone, and just to be
Absolutely.
a small part of that is just amazing. Uh,
Well, and like I say, it's not about leaving the legacy, it's about leaving a path for others to trek that can help them get to a far better place in their own lives. It's like you've thrown open a door and others can walk through that door if they choose to. Uh, I don't
Absolutely.
want it to get confused. I know there's, you know, a gazillion pathways to recovery, to say the least. But the door's got to be open before you can get into that. And these kind of things are creating that. I love the opportunities it places on the table, the chances, the help, the hope. I'm going to allude to it again. You talked about those suicidal ideations. You're not the first, the last, or the only. I'm
Hmm.
sure many of our listeners who are tuned in today have been, may be, or will be in that place. How do you deal with it in the moment? You remember what we've got to say, that there's hope, and this is where it's at, and how you can dig into it. What is the advice that the generic kind of advice, maybe even more personal type of advice that, Larry, you'd give to those who are struggling to find a way out of their addiction?
Don't quit. Just keep moving forward. Don't let the hard days win. There's a million little sayings. It's okay to fall. It's okay to crawl. It's okay to puke. It's okay to cry. Uh, just keep moving forward. Um, you know, Recovery in and of itself is not a linear process, right?
Don't we wish? It's got a squiggle to it that there's no way to effectively draw. And you're up, you're down, you're going around a 360. You're falling off the edge. You got to pick yourself up. Like you said, you don't let the moment win. And just like Paul said, I keep my eye upon the prize, and that prize is recovery in this situation. So, yeah, I like that. I like.
Absolutely. Find somebody that you want to be like. Um, and as Christians, Randy, that sometimes we're maybe the only Jesus somebody will see, right? So they may, people in early recovery are looking at individuals that have, man, they really got it together. No, I don't. I still struggle to stay out of my own way. I have to continue to, you know, move aside and not jump in front of Jesus and all those things. We're just as much of a hot mess express as y'all feel like you are. The only difference is we've made a decision to continue to move forward, no matter what. Um,
You
my grandpa used to say, either get busy living or get busy dying. Um, and sometimes those hardships that we talked about a little bit ago, really, really get you down. Um, you know, there's a Christian saying that's so not biblical that God won't give you more than you can handle.
I knew that's where you were going, but thank you for prefacing with it is not biblical. Okay,
No.
you wish it was.
As a matter of fact, Paul said that they were overwhelmed. They were, I can't remember exactly how he put it, but like they really felt like they wanted to die. And it was so we rely on his strength, right? It's remember in the serenity prayer it says so that we may be reasonably happy in this life and supremely happy forever with him in the next. Um, Reasonably happy is a matter of perspective, and that I think is that contentment that Paul talks about. Right? He said that he's been abased and he's been abound, and in all, no matter what state he finds himself in, he's learned to be content. Um, that's
I
really what it's about is finding that contentment and continuing to move forward and striving for more. It's okay to be. You can be content and still strive for more. Um, I think that's the difference between contentment and complacency.
Amen. And as we go back to the thought that you shared there, God won't put more on us than we can handle, however, we may want to word that. Uh, I think that's found in the book of Randy, fourth chapter, maybe verse 3, and in the book of Larry, and in the book of Susan, John, and Bill. It goes on and on. If God didn't allow us to feel the weight of more than what we can handle, how would we grow? Why would we need faith? We don't have to understand faith. We just got to live it. And it's got to be based in Him. I'm not going to preach sermon on that right now. I
Yeah.
may some Sunday. But
Yes, you could absolutely.
yeah, and there we are. Wow. Listen, Larry, our time's getting away from us here. We got just a brief moment or two. Is there anything you want to say to wrap this up? Whether that's a personal thought, advice, anything else you want to throw out there?
I really think, Randy, the best thing I ever did was hit my knees and say I can't do this on my own. Um,
And that's okay.
and
You
that's
said that
you
early.
know, and that's something that I continue to do. I try to do it on a daily basis. I'll be honest with you. There's days when I'm like, no, I got this. Uh, but it
What's
always comes
scripture
back
say
to
about picking up the cross? That
yeah.
is a daily obligation.
It always comes back to submitting to Him, to knowing that I don't have it all together. Um, because if I allow myself in my flesh or in my brain to continue to think, oh well, yeah, I got this, no problem, I'm gonna screw it up every time. Uh,
You put
100%.
yourself on the throne at that point. We don't live there.
Yep. And sometimes He'll let us get away with it for a while, and then something happens, and it's like, oh yeah, uh,
That bungee cord will snap or it'll pull us back in. Yeah. Yeah.
absolutely.
Well, listen, God bless you and thank you for your time, your work, your ministry, your love for Christ, the example you've shared with us here today, the witness that you've been. We appreciate that, and the lives you're touching. Keep doing it. Keep doing it. The falls are going to come. The struggles are going to be there, but Christ stands above them all, and through Him, so do we. So God bless. We appreciate everything you've shared with us, folks. We always like to remind you to stay in the battle, and Larry's made that clear here today. I've so often thought of the apostles, Peter or Paul, and the times they stumbled, the times they fell, but they got up one more time, then they got knocked down. That's what makes a champion. That's just the way it works. You're going to stumble. I'm going to stumble. We're going to fall. We don't have to stay there. Rise above it. God bless. We love you. Thank you for tuning in. Amen.
Amen.